Before you listen to this, understand one thing: being chosen is not destiny, it is a sentence. And if you wish to survive it, stay with me until the end, because the truth I'm about to reveal will make you unstoppable, or it will break you forever. Listen carefully, because this is where most men delude themselves. They fantasize about being chosen, about being special, about being the one destiny favors. But Machiavelli would laugh at them, because the truth is far more brutal. A chosen one is not crowned, he is condemned. He is marked not by privilege, but by pressure, not by applause, but by expectation. The world does not hand him greatness, it hands him a weight heavy enough to break anyone who is not prepared to suffer for it. A chosen one is forged in circumstances that would crush ordinary souls. He is shaped by hardship, sharpened by disappointment, carved into form by the very forces that others run from. He doesn't rise because he is lucky, he rises because he has no other option. He is forced into fire, pushed into responsibility, dragged into struggle. And in the quiet of the night, when no one is watching, he carries burdens no one would ever understand. People admire his strength, but they never see the sacrifices that created it. They admire the outcome, but not the price. They see him walking with confidence, but they do not see the nights he spent doubting himself, questioning his path, or battling the inner storms that nearly consumed him. The chosen one is not chosen because he is the strongest or the smartest, but because he is willing to endure what others avoid. He accepts a role that demands more of him than he ever imagined he had to give. And here is the harsh reality Machiavelli would not hesitate to reveal: greatness is not granted. It is demanded. It takes, it drains, it devours. It requires the chosen one to constantly push beyond comfort, beyond fear, beyond the safety that ordinary men enjoy. He must make decisions that haunt him. He must carry responsibilities that suffocate him. He must move through a world where every step can cost him everything. Despite this, others look at him with envy. They imagine the power, the influence, the respect he commands. But they will never see the weight pressing on his shoulders every waking moment. The chosen one cannot drop this weight. He cannot rest. He cannot step aside. He cannot live like the rest of the world. He is bound to a higher standard, chained to a greater purpose, driven by something inside him that refuses to be quiet. And slowly, he begins to understand that the burden he carries is not a curse. It is the very force that molds him. Without that weight, he would be ordinary. Without that pressure, he would be like everyone else. The burden is what forces him to grow faster, think sharper, act wiser. It pushes him into isolation, into focus, into discipline. And as the world around him stays comfortable, he becomes someone who can no longer be compared to the common man. But with every step he climbs, with every weight he learns to carry, something else begins to happen. The burden separates him. It detaches him. It isolates him from the world he once knew. He starts to see that rising to the top has a cost far greater than effort. It demands distance. Distance from the familiar, distance from the comfortable, distance from those who will never understand the path he walks. This is where the path of the chosen one grows darker. Because once the burden shapes him, once the weight forces him to evolve beyond the ordinary, a silent separation begins. Not chosen by him, chosen for him. Isolation does not arrive as a decision. It arrives as a consequence. A chosen one does not wake up one morning and say, "I will walk alone." No, the world simply stops being able to walk beside him. Machiavelli understood this well. The man who rises above others becomes feared, misunderstood, envied, but rarely embraced. The chosen one's vision stretches too far. His ambition cuts too deep. His pace moves too fast. The people around him, family, friends, companions, begin to fall behind. They do not intend to. They do not wish him harm. They simply cannot keep up with a man who is being reshaped by responsibility. And so, without warning, his circle shrinks. At first, he resists this loneliness. He tries to explain himself, tries to slow down, tries to lift others so they can rise with him. But soon he learns what every chosen one eventually must. Not everyone wants the weight he carries, and not everyone can breathe at the altitude he climbs. The higher he goes, the thinner the air becomes, and those who once stood beside him begin to suffocate in the intensity of his purpose. Isolation becomes his teacher. Silence becomes his companion. He starts spending more time alone, not because he dislikes people, but because he no longer finds reflections of his mind in them. Conversations that once excited him now drain him. Small talk feels meaningless. Ordinary ambitions feel trivial. He begins to realize that the path ahead is narrow, and only one set of footprints can fit on it. This loneliness is not peaceful. It is sharp, unsettling, almost surgical. It cuts away old attachments, old identities, old comforts. It forces the chosen one to confront himself, to question his motives, to peel back the layers of who he was before the burden transformed him. Most men avoid such introspection. The chosen one no longer has that luxury. And here is the brutal part: the more he grows, the more misunderstood he becomes. Others begin to misread his silence as arrogance, his focus as coldness, his discipline as detachment. They cannot see the storms he navigates internally. They cannot see the pressure beating against him daily. They only see a man who is different now. Distant, difficult to reach, difficult to understand. Some will try to pull him back to the life he is outgrowing. Some will accuse him of changing. Some will resent the very growth they once encouraged. The chosen one begins to understand that isolation is not a side effect of greatness. It is the entry price. And if he refuses to embrace it, he will break under the emotional weight of carrying others who cannot walk beside him. Over time, the solitude becomes familiar. Not comfortable, not gentle, but necessary. It sharpens his thinking. It strengthens his instincts. It allows him to see the world clearly, without noise, without distortion, without the influence of those who cannot understand his path. In the quiet of that isolation, a chosen one discovers a truth that Machiavelli carved into history. Power demands privacy. But something else grows in this silence, an unsettling awareness. The chosen one begins to sense that isolation is not the final price he must pay. Because once he rises high enough, once the distance between him and the rest of the world becomes undeniable, another force begins to emerge from the shadows. A force far more dangerous than loneliness, one that tests not his strength but his trust. Once a chosen one climbs far enough above the crowd, something far more sinister than isolation begins to surround him. Betrayal, like a shadow, starts following every step he takes. Not because he deserves it, not because he has wronged anyone, but because human nature bends toward envy long before it bends toward loyalty. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. When a man rises, others feel smaller in his presence, and small men do not stay quiet for long. The chosen one learns this lesson slowly, painfully. At first, he still believes in people. He believes that those who once supported him will continue to do so, that those who clapped for him will clap again, that those who stood beside him will stay true as he rises. But the higher he climbs, the more distorted people become. Their smiles hide bitterness, their compliments hide insecurity, their kindness hides calculation. And the chosen one begins to sense a shift in their eyes, a subtle tension in their tone, a quiet resentment in their presence. It begins with small fractures. A friend who suddenly pulls away, a relative who speaks about him with an edge, a companion who once wished him well now feels threatened by his success. Human hearts are frail, easily bruised, easily intimidated by someone becoming more than they ever dared to be. And so jealousy grows, quietly at first, then boldly, then uncontrollably. The chosen one starts noticing that those around him are not cheering for him anymore. They are watching him, studying him, measuring his steps, his strengths, his weaknesses, not because they admire him, but because they are calculating where they fit in a world where he no longer remains on their level. And when people cannot rise with you, they often attempt to pull you back down. This is where betrayal becomes unavoidable. The chosen one learns that the people who harm him are rarely strangers. They are the familiar faces he trusted, the ones he welcomed into his inner circle. Betrayal never comes from an enemy. They are too far away to reach your back. It comes from those close enough to touch your shoulder, close enough to hear your plans, close enough to twist the knife. The chosen one begins to understand why Machiavelli said it is safer to be feared than loved. Love is conditional. Love fades when threatened. Love turns sour when envy enters the room. But fear stays loyal. Fear keeps people in line. Fear prevents betrayal, or at least delays it. Yet the chosen one also knows that becoming feared comes with its own cost, a cost he has not yet fully paid. Betrayal transforms him. It hardens him. It forces him to see the world without illusions. He stops granting blind trust. He stops sharing every detail of his journey. He becomes more guarded, more strategic, more aware of the masks people wear around him. Experience teaches him that loyalty is rare, and that the higher he rises, the fewer genuine allies he will have. And once betrayal wounds him, once he feels the sting of being deceived by the very hands he once held, he begins to shift internally. The chosen one starts adopting a new way of thinking, a new posture, a new armor. He realizes he can no longer survive with the softness he once carried. He can no longer afford naivety. He can no longer move through life with an open heart exposed to those who would gladly pierce it. This shift, This transformation marks a turning point. Betrayal does not just change how he sees others, it changes how he sees himself. It forces him to evolve into someone stronger, colder, sharper, someone who cannot be manipulated, broken, or blindsided again. The chosen one starts to understand that rising to power is not just about ascending, it is about becoming unrecognizable to the weak version of himself he once was. After enduring burden, isolation, and betrayal, the chosen one reaches a point where he must confront the reality that he cannot remain who he was. The man he started as is no longer capable of surviving the world he is now stepping into. Power does not accept weakness. Influence does not tolerate hesitation. Leadership does not allow fragility. And so the chosen one undergoes the most difficult transformation of all, the transformation of identity. This change does not happen suddenly. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, in the small decisions he makes each day. He becomes more disciplined with his time, more selective with his company, more strategic with his emotions. Slowly, the softness that once defined him begins to fade. He becomes more calculating, not out of cruelty but out of necessity. He begins to think 3 steps ahead, aware that any miscalculation can open the door for those who want to see him fall. The chosen one learns to separate emotion from judgment. He learns to see human behavior not as it appears but as it truly is. He studies patterns, intentions, desires, fears. Machiavelli himself advised leaders to understand the nature of men, not the illusions they project. And so the chosen one becomes observant, analytical, almost surgical in how he interacts with the world. This transformation may appear cold to those who do not understand it, but the chosen one knows better. He is not becoming heartless, he is becoming wise. He is not turning into a villain, he is becoming unbreakable, because he now realizes that vulnerability in the wrong environment is the fastest path to destruction. The world rewards strength, clarity, and decisiveness. It punishes softness, indecision, and naivete. And so he begins to harden, not in strategy. He keeps his plans hidden. He shares only what is necessary. He speaks less and observes more. Betrayal has taught him that trust must be earned, not given. Isolation has taught him that solitude sharpens the mind. Burden has taught him that endurance is the root of greatness. Together, these experiences forge a new version of him, stronger, sharper, more resilient. The chosen one also learns that power is not something you possess, it is something you must defend. Every advantage he gains must be protected. Every position he reaches must be guarded. Every move he makes must be deliberate. Power attracts attention, and attention attracts opposition. He is no longer just a man, he is a target, a symbol, a threat to those who cannot stand his rise. This realization forces him to toughen his inner world. He builds emotional armor. He no longer allows every criticism to pierce him. He no longer allows every setback to discourage him. He no longer waits for approval, permission, or validation. The chosen one begins to operate with a kind of quiet authority, a calm confidence that cannot be shaken by external noise. Soon, he discovers that true power is not loud, it is silent. True dominance does not shout, it observes. True strength does not seek attention, it commands it effortlessly. And through this transformation, the chosen one becomes someone entirely different from the man he once was. He becomes someone capable not just of carrying his destiny, but of shaping it. But this transformation is not the end. It is merely the threshold. Because once the chosen one evolves into this stronger version of himself, once he develops the discipline, strategy, and resilience needed to survive at the top, he begins to face a new challenge. One that will test not his strength or his loyalty, but his ability to wield power with intention, control, and purpose. And so, the truth stands uncovered. Being a chosen one is not a story of destiny. It is a story of endurance. It begins with a burden heavy enough to crush most men, a weight that forces transformation long before greatness ever arrives. It leads through isolation, stripping away the comfortable illusions of companionship and leaving only the sharp clarity that comes from walking alone. It exposes the chosen one to betrayal, teaching him the harsh reality that loyalty shrinks as you rise, and that envy grows in the shadows of your success. And finally, it demands transformation, reshaping him into someone capable of wielding power without collapsing under it. Machiavelli would remind you that greatness is never given, it is seized. It is earned through suffering, sharpened through hardship, and protected through wisdom. The chosen one becomes who he is not because the world favors him, but because he refuses to break where others would. He is carved from the very challenges designed to destroy him. He rises not by chance, but by the relentless discipline to endure everything that comes with his path. And now, if you have listened this far, Understand this: the path of the chosen one is not a path you stumble into. It is a path you accept, a path you commit to, a path you walk knowing it will demand more of you than anyone else is willing to give. But if you can bear the burden, embrace the solitude, survive the betrayal, and transform yourself into something greater than your former self, then you will discover what only a chosen one ever learns. That is the power you seek, is the power you become.